So the first one is, I was wondering if you could walk us through some of the key principles in innovation theory, and specifically the different types of innovation and then the roles that they play.
You bet. Could I ask? Yeah, there we are. So it's important that we not use the word innovation as innovation is innovation, because there are types of innovation, and they're very different in how we develop them and how we deploy them in the marketplace. So in my mind, it's easy if I start in the bottom left with what we call potential products. That is, these don't exist yet. But what transforms it from an idea into a viable product is that we understand that there's a job that arises in customers' lives that they need to get done. And if we develop a product that helps the customer do the job they're trying to do, they will reach out and pull that product into their lives to get the job done. And a lot of times we think that innovation, successful innovation, is a crapshoot. Some work, some don't. We just have to try a lot to get a little. And what we've concluded is that in developing potential innovations, if we understand the job the customer is trying to do, and then develop a product that will get the job done, we harness the causal mechanism that makes it innovation predictable, because customers need to get something to do the job done. So that's the first one, is that the market exists, even though there might not be products that people can hire to get the job done. The market exists because they have a job to do. So that's the first one. If you could bring this back up, yeah, that's potential. The second we call disruptive innovations. And disruptive innovations transform products that historically were complicated and expensive, so that only the rich and the people who have access could play in the game. Disruptive innovations transform those into products that are so much more affordable and accessible that many more people have access to products and they can afford to own and use them. And this is where growth occurs. A good way to think about disruptive innovations or growth innovations is that you're trying to compete against non-consumption. So they have a job to do, but they don't have the money to get the job done well. We make it affordable and accessible so that they do, and so we're competing not against established competitors, we're competing against non-consumption. And that's where growth occurs. Can you show? I have an ugly face, and so this works better. Then the third type of innovation we call sustaining innovations. Sustaining innovations make good products better. And they are very important in a company, because this is the mechanism by which we keep our profits and margins strong. And this is how we beat the competitors, by making good products better. And when you go around on the outside and just look at innovations broadly, most of the innovations that we see are sustaining innovations. And again, they have to be there. But they don't create growth. Just imagine that I got a job selling Toyota cars, and I successfully sell you a hybrid Prius car. That's great news, but then you won't buy a Camry. If I sell you this year's product, then you won't buy last year's product. And so by their very nature, sustaining innovations don't create growth, because that's not the role that they play in our company. They create the profit, but they don't create growth. And then the fourth type we call efficiency innovations. And efficiency innovations allow us to do more with less. And that's also very critical, because if we're not ever making ourselves more efficient, then they'll kill us sooner rather than later. a key element in efficiency innovations is that they create free cash flow. And if we have free cash flow, then we can cycle it around and identify new potential innovations that can be disruptive to the competitors and so on. And so there are these 4 types of innovations. And it's really important that everybody understands that there has to be a balance, a portfolio, so that we don't sacrifice one in its importance for others. And so what you should do, if this is hard, just quit and become a professor at the Harvard Business School. Because all I have to do is talk, and you have to actually do stuff. But anyway, these are the types of innovations you got.
Good. That's good advice, yeah. What have you seen with companies that are successful in delivering truly a balanced portfolio, and how they've been able to identify and address that inertia, but also really evolve the culture?
Wow. Well, a couple of things. It's really important that we use metrics that are relevant to the innovation. And I got this understanding in one of the early studies we did about the steel industry. And for those who haven't I haven't read your books, and so I'm not offended if you haven't read mine. But we described in there how a group of competitors called mini mills that melt scrap in electric furnaces started at the bottom of the market by melting scrap, and they sold it to concrete reinforcing bar or rebar at the very bottom of the market. And then they went up market and killed the integrated steel companies. And the way they measured profitability was a metric that is gross margin %. And when you measure success that way, it's very obvious what managers should do. That is that they should lop off the lowest profit gross margins and add higher gross margin products to the high end. And by taking out and putting in, you manage your way up to higher and higher gross margins. And by that metric, you're successful. And it occurred to me one day in church, I wonder if God told everybody that they should measure success by gross margins. And I looked in the scriptures, and nobody were they told to do that, you know? And nobody knows who decided to use gross margins, but somebody did, and then we all followed. But it didn't come from on high, right? So, and then I realized, my gosh, the metric is a choice. It's not dictated, it's a choice. And in the steel industry, there's another metric, which is net profit per ton. It's not a percentage, it's a number. And if they measure success by net profit per ton, it would cause the integrated steel companies not to flee up market, but to stay at the bottom of the market. Because if you have all of that volume at the bottom, you can allocate overheads in a more logical way, and they would not have been disrupted. And that is kind of an idiot simple insight that different businesses need to have different metrics. Then a lot of what appears to be cultural inertia and so on falls away because the root of the problem is the metric. I don't know if that makes any sense.
That's incredibly helpful. Yeah, incredibly helpful. Thank you. Can you talk about, and this is again for those who haven't read the books, the danger of focusing too much on understanding your current customer?
Yes. This is, of all of the insights, I think, the most important. because we are all taught to listen to our customers. But when you frame the market where you measure gross margin on the vertical axis, and then there are demanding customers who are never satisfied with the best you can give them, and plain old ordinary customers, and then low-end people like me, right? And we improve our products to make better products that we could sell for better profits to our best customers. And I'll give you an example.
Yeah.
When the industry, there's a more current example. The laptop computer has been disrupted by a smartphone. And the companies that made the laptop computers are just dying. Mm-hmm. You know, Dell is just, and why did they miss this? Well, if they listen to their customers who need better laptops, and you sell them, don't buy the laptop, buy the smartphone. It doesn't do what the customers need to have done. Mm-hmm. And so if you listen to your customers, you're not going to see the smartphone coming. And so Dell doesn't have a smartphone. Hewlett-Packard doesn't have a smartphone. Acer doesn't have it, you know. These are all developed by new companies because the current customers of the established players they don't want this new product. You have to find products or customers who have a different job to do, listen to them. So it's not that you shouldn't listen to your customers, it's which customers you should listen to that can misguide you or guide you. And in particular, your best customers always will ask you to make better products that they are willing to pay higher prices for. Mm-hmm. And that's the information that comes into if you're the leader.
Yeah.
And it's the customers at the bottom of the market. Is the people at the top, if you're screwing up, the customers will tell you about it. But the people at the bottom of the market will just leave. And the information from them is what's critical for innovation.